Breathwork is a buzzword you may have heard before, but the practice has gone on for thousands of years. And today, Brenda Winkle is giving us simple techniques to breathe through stress that can improve our daily lives, along with ways to protect our energy when environments change around us. Intriguing, right? Let's dive in. I'm Megan Waltrip, host of the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast, an extension of an online community created for partners to connect worldwide, find helpful resources, and share stories to feel less alone in this incredibly unique and adventurous way of life. The POCF podcast invites fishermen, family, friends, supporters, or those curious to know more about the commercial fishing community to join conversations as we learn from each other, laugh, sometimes cry, and relate with those who are the faces behind each catch. What do you say? Let's dive in. Welcome, partners of commercial fishermen, to a incredibly spiritual, grounding episode that we have today with Brenda Winkle, who I mentioned in last week's podcast. And she is a certified advanced trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, somatic coach, and trauma-informed Reiki Master. I'm so thrilled. I'm just going to dive in because there's just too much good information here. So welcome, Brenda. Actually, no, let me back up. I have been a fan of Brenda. I first heard Brenda on a podcast, it was on YouTube with Kathy Heller. She was in a container with Kathy Heller. And I was so inspired by her passion and her gifts that you can truly hear through the airwaves she radiates. And she inspired me to sign up for a mastermind class. And I signed up for a mastermind class with Julie Solomon. Shout out to Julie. And I told Julie about this experience hearing Brenda, and I wanted that experience for myself. And she said, well, Brenda's going to be in our group. And I just thought that was such an incredible divine, just how it was supposed to be. And so we went on this journey together through this group. And now we finally get a chance to connect and I get to share Brenda's gift with our community. And so we can learn how we can help ourselves and heal ourselves. And so what a way to bring in 2024. So Brenda, thank you so much again for being here. I am just honored and thrilled.
Oh, Megan, thank you for having me here. I am so grateful for our connection and loved getting to know you more in Julie's container. And it was so energy rich in that container. And I loved just getting to know you. We were kind of messaging back and forth and we would message in the Zoom calls. And so this just feels so aligned and juicy to me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so beautifully said. So thank you. I received that majorly. Okay, let's talk about your gifts. Please explain, what does advanced trauma-informed breathwork facilitator, the Reiki Master, and the somatic coach, what do all those titles mean? And how did you get started as well?
Well, I have been sensitive. And when I say sensitive, I mean, like, I would get overwhelmed, overstimulated by too much. And I was aware of things that other people weren't aware of. I heard things people didn't hear. And so when I say sensitive, I mean it in all of the ways possible. And that started as a very young child. And people were freaked out by the way that I could really hone in on what was true for them and the things that I said. And as a young kid, I read my gifts as bad because I could see the fear on the adults' faces, not my parents, but like teachers would be like, how did you know that? That kind of thing. So I turned my gifts into massive people pleasing, because if I people pleased, then I could use my gifts without telling people I was using my gifts. And so that led to a lot of really unhealthy behaviors. I mean, really unhealthy behaviors. So at the age of 35, I found myself in a toxic marriage I'd been in for, 14 years at that point. And I left it and we moved into a domestic violence shelter. And I knew that for my 5-year-old at the time, I had to find a path to healing. I did not correlate leaning into my gifts as part of that path. I just knew I wanted to heal. And so it started with a yoga class, which really helped me slow down my thinking mind, got into my body, and became a yoga practitioner. And then in a yoga class, I met a beautiful yoga teacher who came to my school and offered yoga in my classroom. And so I had other teachers in the classroom, and we would like once a week gather in my classroom and we'd practice yoga. And one time I said something about, I really would love to have a massage. And this teacher said, well, I know somebody. Let me go get her card. So she went and got the card, and on it, it said Reiki, something, her name and Reiki. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I've heard of Reiki, but I don't really know what that is. And she looked at me and she said, oh, well, I'm a Reiki master. Why don't you come in for a session? My treat. And the rest is history. That was in 2014. So in 2014, I went in for my first Reiki session and I thought, what is this? I have to have more. So in 2014, 2015, I got certified in Reiki. 2016, I got certified in theta healing. And then in 2020, when I recertified, I also got my advanced training in theta healing, got trained in Clendening, which is another healing technique. And then in 2022, I discovered breath work. And breath work to me is like the thing that we should all be doing all the time because there's no barrier to entry. We can all breathe and there's no cost to breathing. And, it impacts every area of our life. So that's kind of a long way of, of answering your question, but it was just kind of one thing after another presented itself. And I just followed the energy.
Man, that is such a beautiful story. And thank you for sharing your vulnerability surrounding leaving your marriage, the strength that it must have taken for you to do that with where you were at that moment and just following that path to where you are now. I mean, it's just so inspiring. And oh man, Reiki, I've had that done once and I definitely want to do it again. I'm wondering, what does it feel like in the body for you whenever you went to your first Reiki? We'll start there.
Mm-hmm.
When you went to your first Reiki session, what did it feel like for you? Like, what would people expect if they were going to do a Reiki session?
Well, Reiki is going to be a little bit different for every person because Reiki is universal energy. And so it's going to depend on what is present in your body at that time. But most typically, you will go into a Reiki session and there'll be like a massage table. You might have a blanket, be comfortable. You will be fully clothed. Some Reiki practitioners put hands on, and it would be hands on like major body parts like head, shoulders, arms, legs. Nothing private would ever be touched. You wouldn't expect to have somebody's hands in some place that's sensitive for you. And so a lot of people describe a feeling of warmth or kind of a like a tingling pressure sort of a feeling. And some people experience like they almost fall asleep instantly and they just rest even though they're not really asleep. They feel like they're asleep. It's very restorative, very nourishing, very relaxing because Reiki promotes the body's natural relaxation response, which allows for healing. And so it is very relaxing.
And so that's how you can cleanse whatever is going on that might feel negative or challenging inside too.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Reiki works by aligning and balancing chakras. Actually, everything I do works in that way. There's always this chakra component, but Reiki is a very gentle, passive way that we can align and balance chakras. So if somebody's really new to healing and they think, I don't want to talk about anything, Reiki is a great place to start because you can or not talk. It's totally up to you. And, I I got my trauma informed certification for Reiki through the Institute of Heart Math. And so just wanted to name that all of these healing modalities should be 100% consent based. People should ask you for permission to touch, even at a session that you've paid to be at. You should still be asked, is it okay for me to touch you? Because it feels so different in your nervous system when you give consent.
Wow. That's so true. That is hitting. I'm thinking of many things right now. Thank you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, on that note, I was talking about going to therapy last week. We just talked about Reiki, which is with another person. You can also do it with yourself, which I want to get to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But let's talk about that out of pocket breath work, which, it's funny when I hear about breath work and I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. And I really want to try it. And I do meditate. And I start to do breath work, and then I start to, do the inner critic inside. And so breath work becomes challenging. And
Mm.
and it's almost like, even though we breathe every day, thankfully, that our bodies are allowing us to breathe unconsciously, conscious breathing almost feels like a hurdle for me to get over. And I want to share that for anybody else who feels that out there. How do we get started with something as simple as breathing consciously? Like,
Yeah.
what's the step for that?
So what you're talking about is really normal, just wanting to normalize that experience. That, if you have never thought about consciously controlling your breath, it can feel like, oh, this is hard. This is weird. Like, how do I do this? Why are you asking me to do it this way? And so I'm curious, what pattern were you breathing when you were trying to breathe in breath work? Do you
Let's
know?
see. I've done a couple. So I've done for the meditative one, it's been, I think it was, I'm counting in my head while I breathe. I believe it was in 4, hold 2, out 4, hold 2, kind
Oh,
of a
okay.
box breathing.
Yeah.
I've done shorter ones that were like in 2 or 3, hold 1. I almost felt too short. However, yeah, I think I haven't been so vigilant on my practice with the box breathing, but I do the visualizations. I try anyway with the chakras going in and out. And also I know it's kind of advanced that I've heard in different like Hindu breath work and probably all kinds of different practices, but to visualize the chakras while you're breathing, but also inhaling through the stomach first, then filling up with the lungs, you know, inhaling up to the top of your head, holding, and then exhaling through that reverse process. So out through, visualizing through your head, out through your lungs, and then through your stomach, and then holding. That's a breath work pattern I've heard of in the past with the yogi, which also has felt challenging too, because I'm like, wait, am I breathing in and out of my chest or my stomach? Did I just let air out? Like it's one of
Mm-hmm.
those.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I've tried many. And
Yeah.
I'd love to know, where's a great place to kind of recalibrate?
Yeah. So what you're naming is really normal. And so I don't want to make anything bad. And I just want to start by saying none of this is bad and none of this is wrong. So my approach is that the targeted breathing that you're talking about, breathing in from the belly or whatever, that would be for a very specific thing that I would want you to do. It would not be a pattern that I would say, hey, go breathe this on your own.
Got it.
I would, in a session, I would say, oh, I'm sensing XYZ. Let's use this particular pattern. And then I would cue you through it so you wouldn't have to think about it. So, in my view, that particular kind of breath pattern is more advanced. Not to say you can't do it, but most typically, unless you're a breathwork facilitator or a somatic coach, you're not going to be doing that breathwork pattern on your own. You're going to be held through it. And the counting that does work unless your nervous system is activated. And if you're in a really activated nervous system state, the counting is going to piss you off, right?
Yeah,
You're going to
I'm
be like,
laughing.
why am I counting? Why am I counting? This is too hard. So if you're in a really activated nervous system state, simple is better. So
Love it.
depending on what you need, like if you need to really release some stuff, I might suggest what you're talking about with the end of the belly, into the chest, all only using the mouth. So inhale into the belly, into the chest, out into the space around you. So it'd be like this.
So
But I would,
quick, short breaths from
Mhm.
each, in and out.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be quick. You can actually
Mhm.
pace your own body. Your body knows. If your
Mhm.
body wants to go slow, you can go slow. But the thing that I would say is do like 10 of those breaths on your own. Don't breathe like that on your for an hour or something, because again, we're going to come back to nervous system. If your nervous system is activated, and you are highly stressed, you either want to be held by someone like a facilitator to recognize the signs that you're approaching that capacity so that you don't overdo your nervous system, which could actually cause trauma.
Wow. That makes
Yeah.
sense. And it's incredible that we have that much power. I think we know we have so much power. And so whenever sometimes it can feel a lot in the sense of, for myself, if I might diverge for a second, and within the Partners of Commercial Fishing industry, and commercial fishermen, just lifestyle experience, a very common thing that we think about is our partner's death on the regular because they have such a very dangerous job. Now, how far some of us take it, that depends on how long we've been in the game. Depends on if we have some kind of a way to manage our anxiety. And also it comes up whether you've been in the game, for if it's new or if it's been a long time. But you learn a process on how to overcome that. So whenever, let's say the weather starts to change and you know that your fisherman's out there and you see the sea state and you're feeling completely helpless and you're thinking of all the things that you don't want to think about. How do you breathe through a moment like that?
Let's breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, and let's focus on the length of exhale. Let's make the exhale as long as you want it to be. It doesn't have to be any length, as long as you want it to be. And the beauty in doing this is that we know that there's a direct correlation in physiology between the length of your exhale and the reduction of anxiety and the lowering of blood pressure. So as we're talking right now, Megan's doing the breathing. I can watch her, and I am watching and tracking her nervous system coming down. Like I can see there's a calmness that's coming through you. I can feel it. And I'm sure that when she speaks again, you're going to be able to hear it because it really works quick. And the reason it works quick is because if we're up in our mind, we have three intuitive centers. We have the mental field up in the head, in the mind. We have the emotional body, which is around the heart, a little bit outside the body, but around the heart. And then we have the intuitive center, which is deep in the body, kind of around the belly button area, but just outside. So when we do breath work, we're accessing that deep intuitive center. If we do it for more than a minute or two, which allows us to calm the chatter in our mind.
Beautiful. And it does. Let me tell you, even after just one or two, I felt, oh, I have control over this. I felt like I was exhaling breath I've been holding for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like that last breath. It felt like, oh, okay. Okay.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And so I had done breath work for years in my classes. I was an educator before I was a healer. And I'd done it in classes and I heard about breathwork facilitators and I was like, what do they do? Like breathwork facilitator? That's dumb. Why would anybody want to do that? Then I tried the breathwork from my mentor, Samantha Skelly, who's the founder of Pause Breathwork. And I met her at a retreat and I was like, oh, seriously, I need more of this. And so my experience with breathwork was kind of, some twists and winds in the road. And my experience was a little bit like yours. Like, I don't think this feels good. I don't think I want to do this. And so I love that just now you experience a little bit of relief.
It is. It's so helpful. And also, I've heard the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association, they have such an incredible program for the fishermen in Maine, and they created resources, and they've also partnered with, I believe, a breathwork facilitator in Maine to help Maine fishermen work through the stresses that they go through in everyday life. Fishermen, and I said, my friend Monique Coombs, who is married to a lobsterman, and she's also one of the event coordinators. She does all this incredible things, a lot for the mental health side of that part of the Commercial Fishing Association. And I said, well, how are the fishermen responding to this? Because me being my own little stigmas, I'm like, I mean, a fisherman, like, what the hell for breath work? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like for fishermen, she said it's been so receptive because the fishermen are at a point where they're like, we'll do anything to
Mm-hmm.
help calm our nervous systems.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do anything to help our mental health, especially when fishermen, it can be challenging to not only accept and go to help, receive help, go get support, but having the time to do it and on their daily grind. I mean, it's such long days, such long nights, depending on what it is, long seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so to hear that they were very receptive of the breath work because it was like, well, I got nothing else. Let's try it. It's incredible that they're able to be open to it. It's, my heart always goes out to the fishermen that are struggling with and challenges with, not only the weather and the prices and regulations all the time, but it's hard on your body. It's this physical job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
also hard on the partners because we see our loved ones go through this and we want to be helpful. And so, yeah, the fact that thank you for sharing this breathwork technique because it's amazing that it's already being received in a part of the country where I think is probably one of the saltiest fishermen out there is Maine Lobstermen. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and one of the reasons why breath work is so impactful is you don't have to talk. And so there's nothing against talk therapy. I value talk therapy. And I want to just say that to any therapist or anybody that is in therapy. There is value in therapy. But if our nervous systems are really dysregulated and we're in a state of stress, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, then talking, if we're at any discomfort, like above a 6, can actually be re traumatizing. And so the reason that breath work really helps is there's no need to get into story around why you're feeling the stress. You just get into the body and release and heal that stress. And that's one of the reasons why it works. And men, men in our culture typically don't have tools and resources that are socially accepted for them to manage and deal with stress. And so breath work is such a beautiful thing for the men in our world because they need this as much as the women and the wives do.
wow, that's so true. Thank you for that. And it's yes, it's the in the pocket thing. I love the tools that you could just pull out anytime and rework. So when you said to go over the breath work again that you just said, so we all know, you say to take a breath in and then a longer exhale. That's all it is. There's no numbers or
That's
anything.
all it is. Yep.
I
Let's not
love
count.
it.
I invite you to do an inhale through the nose and an exhale through the mouth if it's accessible to you. And if for some reason it's not accessible to you, like let's say you have a stuffed nose or it just doesn't feel good, then sip in through like a straw so that there's just a little opening. Because what we want to do is we want to warm that air before it gets to our lungs, if we can, in this particular pattern, not every breath work, but in this one to release some of that anxiety. It's nicer on our systems if we can warm that air a little bit in the nose first.
Love it. It's so all the nuances of being a human. It's just so juicy. Isn't
Right?
it? I mean, the mystery of being a human. It's like it's never a dull moment. So good. Okay. So I feel that you've answered this already, but I feel pulled to ask you again. The science behind breath work. So you discovered this in 2022, you mentioned. How
This
did
particular kite type,
this
yeah.
particular kind? Okay.
Mhm.
So I guess what was it about this particular kind? And is it kind of like is it a new philosophy? Is this been going on in cultures for thousands of years? Where does this come from?
Yeah, breathwork has been around since recorded or before recorded history. We can trace it back to even the times that the Bible or the Torah were written. Like there are actually words that correlate with breathwork in both of those texts. We also know if we go to like yogic traditions in India, there are Sanskrit words for breath. For example, if you've heard of prana, that's the word for breath. And so breath work has been around really since humans have been around. It's recently gaining attention in our Western world because our science is telling us all the reasons that breathwork is impactful. And I think that we have hit a point in our history in the Western world where we live that we know what we're doing is not working and it's time to embrace something else. And so I think the reason that this breath work really spoke to me when I was trained through pause breath work is because number one, it's trauma informed, which means that we're not causing harm knowingly to people. So we're really working at the pace of their nervous system. And then number two, it's all about energy first all the time. And so the reason I appreciated Samantha Skelly's work so much was because she keeps her energy clean, really clean. And so I also do the same thing. And I make sure that I have full capacity to hold space for somebody who comes into one of my sessions. And that energetic cleanliness is what makes a huge difference.
I love this. Okay. Two major things. I'm going to go back to the one that just came up though. How do you as a facilitator cleanse and recharge and protect your energy?
I love this question. So, for example, a few minutes before we logged in together, I was practicing my own breath work, and it was a breath work to energize and amplify my energy. So that's one way. It's like just before I log in, I always take care of my energy, make sure it's clean. I create white space in my calendar because I cannot get the divine downloads that I'm meant to have if I'm busy, 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 busy. There's not enough space. So I have white space in my calendar, and then I really prioritize how I'm feeling and my physical health. So I focus on rest, hydration, nutrition. I get my own energy work done, by energy healers, energy practitioners, acupuncturists. And so I'm always optimizing my own system. And if there's any healer that you're working with that is not prioritizing their own healing, run.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's so good. That is so good. And it's also so encouraging to be like, there's no peak of the mountain. Like, it's just like we're always constantly wanting to evolve and grow. And there's always something to learn. And that's part of the human experience. We're able to
Yeah.
really get in there and like appreciate what's going on and take those challenges and go, okay, things are happening for me. What can I do in this moment to find my flow, find the way out, and also not way out through it.
That's it. That's it. So we
Mhm.
have the context of our lives, the things that are happening around us and for us, and then we have the content. And the content is what we use to grow. We all have context. We all have stuff happening. But when we use that content to grow, to really fuel our evolution, that's when it gets juicy.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. I'm writing content and context right now on the notes. I'm putting all this stuff in the show notes, which is amazing. So, okay, another question. And you've answered this in the beginning, but I'd love to get a little deeper if we can. So, what does it mean to be, like you said, you're an empath, you feel things and highly intuitive. So,
Mm-hmm.
how did you, I guess you knew you had a gift in this area because you were feeling things that maybe other people weren't as intensely. And then you were able to harness those gifts after you came into a new chapter and transitioned into you leveled up
Mm-hmm.
when you were 35 and got into your goodness. And so if one is an empath, how does one care for themselves? How does one protect themselves from other energies? Um, if you might be maybe in a crowded area or you're in a place where there's aggression all of a sudden and
Mm-hmm.
things like this or volatile situations. I don't know. Being in public, it can be very intense for some people, social anxieties.
Mm-hmm.
And, how does a person go into that, experience something, and then walk away with it, I guess, without taking it with them, if that makes sense? Like, I guess, how do you cleanse? I mean, you said you've done breath work. You do breath work to kind of cleanse your energy. Is there something that you do if like you're in a situation, you're like, that was weird? Like, is there a kind of a breath work or without having sage, something that you could do, like walking away from something that happened at the bus station or downtown? I don't know. I'm just trying to make up sort of,
Yeah.
instances.
Well, so, you know, there's this feeling that most empaths have that I'm weird, that I'm the only one, that I'm the one that's too sensitive, like in quotes. And I just want to normalize that. There was a science study in 1994 that revealed 20% of the population is highly sensitive, meaning they have more neuroreceptors and neurotransmitters in their brain. And this is not the same thing as sensory processing disorder. That's not a disorder. This is a gift. So, in the 20% of the population, there's another subset of that population that has even more and different kinds of receptors and transmitters that allow them to empathically receive information from people. So that was the 1994 study. There was a study that was in the last 2 years. I don't want to say when it was because I don't want to be wrong, but it's really recent that revealed it's actually 30% of the population is highly sensitive. And that subset of empathic, intuitive is even more strongly correlated to differences in the brain, in the way that we process information. And so there's a whole study around psychics, intuitives, empaths, and there's actually branches of major universities that do study this kind of work. So I just want to normalize it in saying that if you think I think I'm weird, you're not. There's 30% of the population that's weird like you, and people just aren't owning it and they're suffering through it. So let's just normalize that a little bit. And then, yeah, there's so much that you can do. There's so much that you can do. And this is the bulk of my work. And so this is going to be like a drop in the bucket, but there's some really impactful things you can do. So if you imagine your central column or central channel, like as your spinal column, if you imagine that as your energetic center, which it is, and then imagine you're going to take your hands out in front of you and you're going to pull back your energy into your spinal column. You can even do that now. Do you feel that difference? Like you still have awareness of my energy, but you're not feeling it in the same way.
Absolutely.
So this is something that if you're an empath or an intuitive, you want to be doing every single day, just pulling back your own energy. So now I know what's yours. I know what's mine. I can feel my own sovereignty. And I still have awareness of you. So in your everyday relationships, in your everyday interactions, this is something that you want to do. Now let's talk about those emergencies. Like there's something really chaotic happening, or you're at a really loud event, like a concert or a football game, and it's just so much for your system that you feel like you might explode. So this is the in case of emergency move. And the reason I say in case of emergency is that it does create an energetic barrier, which is good because it's going to give you more room to function, but it also creates a barrier against the people closest to you. So you don't want to use this against your partner or your kids or your best friends. But if you zip up your energy, so imagine that you're wearing a parka and you're going to zip up from the base of your torso up over the front of your body and up over your head. And you'll repeat that move 3 times. And it's fun if you actually use a zipping motion. So actually zip, 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 zip up. And then you can do that 3 times. And then you can immediately feel, okay, I'm in my own little bubble. So if you have that, emergency where you're over capacity, this is a great thing to do. And then you can just kind of snap your fingers and intend to take it down when you are back with people who are feeling more aligned with you, or you have your capacity back. Then you can remove that barrier.
That's so good. Okay, I have to ask one more. What if something happened where you're like, ugh, I feel like that person's energy, like they were too close or they touched me and like, I don't know. Now I feel like how do I get that energy? If there's any ick energy that you feel like you have, how do you, like, I don't know, not download it, but like
Cleanse
get it
it.
out?
Yeah.
Cleanse
So,
it.
is it in your scenario, would it be that somebody has bumped you or touched you? Or would it be that like you were just hanging out with somebody and you feel icky?
It was kind of like a hangout, and then yeah, it was a hangout and like elbow situation, and like that it was weird.
Okay, so let's do that one. I would just like actually physically brush off the elbow. brush it off, brush the energy away. And then I like to do like, imagine maybe, first of all, I don't bake, so I don't want to give anybody a false impression, but imagine you've got flour in your hands and you're going to clap it off. So you're going to clap that energy off. What's yours is yours. What's mine is mine.
Love it. Thank you.
Yeah. But let's say that you went out for lunch with somebody and it's somebody that you were like establishing a relationship with, somebody you don't know very well. You just want to be a friend with them. And then you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so drained being with you. Because that happens too. So I call those energy vampires. Most of the people that are energy vampires don't mean to be energy vampires. They're not bad people. They don't understand what they're doing. So in that case, I'm going to zip up my energy, protect against them, and then I'm going to remove the vacuum that they have. And for most of us, that's going to attach right around our heart. So imagine that you're like literally turning a vacuum hose. So you'll like get your hands in a big C shape and you're going to just make a little click, like clicking circle motion to unhook the vacuum hose and then plug it right back up to source, moving your hand up and unplug their energy.
That's good.
It's so good. It's so fun. Yeah. So then you take back your energy and you're not like leaving them high and dry. You're just plugging them back up into source.
Yeah, that's good. And it physically does make a difference when you do it, like physically do it. I mean, it does feel a shift because I guess, like you say, it's the intention and you're making yourself move your body to honor that intention. That's beautiful. Okay. How can people learn with you more? How do we get more Brenda Winkle in our lives?
Well, I have a free course, Breathwork to Strengthen and Trust Intuition. And you can get that by going to brendawinkle.com/breathe. And that is a really nice course that talks about safety, how you can create a better sense of safety. You'll learn 2 different breath patterns and have a breath experience. So that's one option. I'm on Instagram at Brenda Winkle. I'm just getting started over on TikTok, just getting that all figured out. But the hub of everything is the website, brendawinkle.com. It's got access to the podcast and all the links and whatever I'm working on at that time.
Awesome. Well, I thank you. And I cherish this time that we had together. And I feel it was a very intimate conversation. I hope other listeners, everybody's kind of, had such a great takeaway as well, because I feel like we've really just got a chance to connect, woman to woman, soul to soul, spirit to spirit, and trying to learn how we can continue this beautiful journey of our life experience. And for my community, it's this total unique partner of a commercial fisherman. I mean, that's a whole different world that I don't think some of us would ever realize. And then the ones that have been in it maybe don't realize how incredibly unique and special it really is, and how our superpowers that we have inside are going to serve us in the long run. So
absolutely. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. And it's so important. And I didn't, until you and I met and started to talk, I didn't realize that this niche existed. And the work you're doing is so impactful. Thank you for doing the work.
Oh, well, thank you, Brenda. I appreciate you. I'm honored to be a facilitator to this community. So for you to be on this podcast. So thank you so much. Happy New Year. And we'll see you at brendawinkle.com and IG and all the things that I'm going to put in the show notes so people can learn. I'm definitely signing up for that free course too. So you'll see me in there.
Yeah. And you know what? If you're a listener and you like this episode, tag both Megan and I and tell us what you loved about it, or tell us if you have questions.
I love that. Yes. Screenshot and tag us. We are here. Thank you so much, Brenda. I'll talk soon. We'll talk again for sure.
Thanks, Megan.
All right. Bye. I'm sharing a review from a forum member because this is really driving home how incredibly valuable and resourceful it is to have that kind of intimate community inside the private forum. So here we go. She says, "Thank you so much for your advice. It actually made me cry. Thank you so much for your support. I don't have that here in the middle of Missouri where this lifestyle isn't a thing. It really means a lot." And that message really meant a lot to me because that just shows how connected we are throughout the world, throughout the country, whether we're near a harbor or not. And also things arise all the time and you just don't know where to turn. You don't know who to ask because many of your friends and family probably maybe don't even know how to relate, or they maybe can relate in a different way. And it's not exactly the support that you're looking for. That is what you can find. Or no, not that. You can find the opposite in our forum. Our forum is just so full of love, so full of women who know what it's like, who have been there and can offer support to help you whenever you need it. I am there to offer one-on-one support as well. And it's just really incredible to get to know y'all and to also understand what kind of resources that you need that I can research and find for you and cultivate for our incredible community. So if you want to join in on this beautiful group that we have, you can go to meganwaldrop.com/private-forum to learn more. That's meganwaldrop.com/private-forum. Hope to see you in there. Thank you so much for being here. Your downloads, your reviews mean more than you know, because that's how we know that you are enjoying the podcast. And if you'd like to further support the community, you can tap the subscribe button, share with family and friends, post on socials, or write a review. But you know what? As long as you're getting value, that is all that matters. But if you go that extra step, we truly, truly appreciate it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you're a partner of a commercial fisherman looking for more resources on how to navigate this unique lifestyle, from long distance dating to communication to finances to motherhood advice to mental health, safety, you know, all the things. We're building more resources on succession planning and retirement. It's going to be amazing. There's even an option to join the private forum as well if you jump onto pocfpride.com to learn more. We are there for you. We got all of the community and all of the resources you need, and they are continuing to grow as we learn what you need the most. We can't wait to connect with you, and thank you so much again for being here. Thanks for listening today. Being here means you're a part of the POCF family, and we wouldn't be a community without you. I'm Megan, and this is the Partners of Commercial Fishermen podcast. As always, much love, POCF pride, and remember, you are not alone.